Welcome to DASA Connect 2023. My name is Matthew David, and today we're going to be talking about the impact of generative AI within education. So we're going to go through really 5 key topics, and the first couple are really about the impact of generative AI popularized with tools like ChatGPT. Why now? What is the value of this topic now? What is building this solution? And then we're going to deep dive into the power of generative AI and how it's going to affect teachers, students, and educators, so we can have a more effective way of presenting and delivering education. And then we're going to get into 2 final topics, the risks. This is emerging technology, so we have to be eyes wide open in this technology. And then the players, who is actually going to help provide the technology that allows us to have this monumental change in education. So with that, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Matthew David. I am one of the leaders for generative AI at Accenture. I spend a lot of my time speaking to lots of different companies about generative AI technologies, generative AI being just one of the many AI technologies that we have in our digital tool chest. I've been doing this for quite some time now, and it's a topic I find fascinating, and certainly right now, everything is changing. And that really kind of leads me into my first slide here, which is around the sheer volume of information that's coming out, and predominantly from one company, OpenAI. And OpenAI is the company that has really driven 2 landmark technologies in the last year. Just over a year ago, they released DALL-E 2, which was an image editing tool where you could put in a prompt, and a prompt being just a phrase, and it would then come up with an image from your phrase. And that was interesting. That was had a novelty value to it. But the sea change moment happened later in the year when a product called ChatGPT was released on November 30th. And within 5 days, the product went from no users to 1 million unique users. Within 60 days, it managed to hit 100 million users. So why were people flocking to this product? And why is there so much news that we're seeing about it? Well, it really comes to the background and the structure of what's happening within the AI industry. And ChatGPT is a tool that allows you to create content. We're all used to, on our phones when we're texting with friends, seeing the next word or 2 automatically come up in a light gray text, prompting us to see whether or not it's the right word. So there is AI in that, and it's guessing what the next word is. With ChatGPT and other generative AI technologies, what we're seeing is the extension of that guessing of what the next word is, or guessing what the next image is from your prompt, taking it to a much greater level. So with ChatGPT, what we saw were people were able to go in and say, I have these different ingredients in my larder. What should I make for supper tonight? And having recommendations and then full recipes coming out. We also saw students going in saying, I have to write an essay tonight. Can you write it for me? And they would write 1 sentence about what the subject of the essay is, and the full essay would come out. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go through here today. But we had a seminal moment with the launch of ChatGPT, in that people stood up and recognized that we were at a point where technology had a change, a dynamic change on the way that we work. And in many ways, this is the 4th technology change that we've seen over the years. The first one was arguably the invention of the personal computer in the late 1970s, early 1980s. The second was in the 90s, when we had the web. The third was the launch of the iPhone, when Steve Jobs took to the stage and presented the world the iPhone. What's interesting is that all of these technologies and all of these sea changes, they didn't just happen overnight. There were years in the workings of that technology getting to the point where it would be presented to an audience, and people would then grab it. The difference, though, with those changes is that the packaging was complete. So when the iPhone was presented, it was really the essence of a new product, and it was clear that we're at the start of a new period of technology. ChatGPT, even though we've had generative AI technologies and really for many years, ChatGPT was at a point where it was good enough as an AI technology, where if you start using it, you realize that you truly have a digital assistant that is assisting you. It's not something that is just doing basic commands. It is truly helping you to be more effective. So let's kind of step through just quickly, about generative AI and the two fundamental differences between analytical AI and generative AI. So I like to say that generative AI is an overnight success that's taken about 70 years to get here. So if we look at the progress that we've had with artificial intelligence, you can actually trace it all the way back to the 1950s. Now, arguably, we have been using artificial intelligence within our workspace probably for about 20, 25 years. There's been different elements of it. It started very much in data. We saw that in the late 1990s with companies like Amazon and Google heavily investing in AI to be able to do the correct ranking of results. So if you put in a question into Google, the correct web page, which had the most appropriate answer that you were looking for, would be the top result. So we call that ranking. But then we saw that coming through into other products. And then more recently, over the last few years, arguably, we've all experienced AI every time we take a photograph with our phones. Our phones are loaded with AI to help improve our photographs. The difference, though, between analytical AI and generative AI is analytical AI can be seen as almost running in autopilot in the background. It's a way that the technology is working that we don't even know it's working. It's doing its magic, and that's great. With generative AI, we're actually creating something. So we're putting in a prompt, a number of words, normally just a sentence describing what you're looking for, and a result is coming out. But then what's interesting is you can then fine tune that result by asking questions about the answer that you get. So you're really generating, and you're moving from being on autopilot into co-pilot, where you're co-creating that content. And that, I think, is the pivotal change that we have seen with the release of tools such as ChatGPT. But it's not just it's not just restricted to just text. What we're seeing is that generative AI is exploding across all different media formats, what we call modal formats. It is clearly being seen with code. If you are using GitHub, there has been GitHub Copilot for the last year and a half. Just recently this spring, it was expanded to include GPT-4, which is the latest technology from OpenAI, where Copilot is now called Copilot Plus. Amazing tool for creating code for the solutions that you're building. But we also have seen it with images, and DALL-E 2 is really a poster child for that. And what's interesting with DALL-E is that you can visually see the rapid advances. A year ago when DALL-E 2 was released, it was a nice novelty. More recently, if you go to create.bing.com, you can see a much more advanced version of DALL-E, where you can put in a prompt, say something like, show me a teacher presenting to a number of students in a classroom. A year ago, that would have been, you could tell that was a teacher. Now it is a very crisp image, very, very advanced technology, allowing to visualize what you're looking for. But we're also seeing it in speech and video. And I think speech and video are going to be really foundational areas where you can take audio that's happening in real time, transcribe that to text, and then have AI tools such as ChatGPT analyze the text and provide responses back. And that's going to be significant. We're going to talk more about that as we go through our slides on education. So why now? So what's interesting is the reason why we're seeing the why now for why these technologies are exploding is that the barrier to entry for tools like ChatGPT, Microsoft's Copilot product that's coming out, and all the other tools that we will start seeing coming out over the next year is that unlike previous technologies where we had a sea change moment, where you had to either be technically very savvy on the technology, or you had to invest in an expensive computer. So when the internet came out, I had to spend $2,000 on a personal computer. When the iPhone came out, you had to spend $600 on an iPhone. These were significant barriers that prevented from mass adoption. ChatGPT came out, and all it was is a web page. Absolutely no barrier to entry. We have a digitally savvy global community, and they immediately kind of locked into what this solution could provide them. So the barrier to entry is incredibly low. The intuitive nature of these tools that allow you to have conversations with a human-like response is really helping generate and inspire people to learn faster and improve on the work they were doing. I was actually just presenting to one of my leaders last night, and his reaction was, wow, this feels like this is going to replace consultants. And I said, no. What we have here is opportunity to take our organization, and using this Copilot tool, we can take ourselves to the next level and keep pushing ourselves so that we get even better at what we're doing. So it's really had a tremendous impact. And I think the timing was just right for ChatGPT to come out and deliver on a solution. If it hadn't been ChatGPT, it would have been another AI solution because we were at that right point. So let's step into AI within education. And I've got a couple of slides here that I want to step through. I think the first area we have to focus on is on the student. Just to give you a quick story about myself. So I grew up in England, and if you're outside of the UK, it's always fun trying to explain the UK education system, particularly to Americans. When you tell people that we do GCSEs and then we do A-levels, they always get a head scratcher on that one. So I was doing my A-levels, which is the equivalent of the final 2 years of high school in the US and abroad. And one of the challenges that I ran into is that I read the materials and I was very good in class talking about the materials, but I was a terrible writer. Just a terrible writer, and I was consistently getting an F, and I was doing an English literature A-level, and I got to the end of doing my A-level and I failed. And it was heartbreaking because I really wanted to do a literature degree. And so I made the decision to actually go back and redo my final year. So it would be like redoing your final year of high school and being what they refer to as a super senior, not a great place to be. And after about 6 weeks of starting doing my this will be now my third year of doing my A-levels and doing a literature class, I had a new teacher, and he came up to me and goes, Matt, I don't understand this. You're a great student, but your writing is awful. And he asked me a pivotal question. He said, does anybody actually explain to you how to write an essay? And I said, no, they actually haven't. And he said, well, this is what you do. And he spent 15 minutes with me and went through the structure of what an essay is. In 2 weeks, my grades went from being an F to being an A. And this is the type of approach that we can see with personalized education for students, is that it took me years to find the right tutor that would explain to me in language that I would understand what I needed to go from being a failing student to an exceeding student. And with what we can see with generative AI is there's an opportunity where the AI technology can really zero in and help students go from being failing students to actually providing them education one-on-one on how they learn with their own learning practices. We're seeing Khan Academy. We're one of the very first partners with OpenAI's GPT-4, actually release a product where they actually have a first stage of learning at a personalized level for students. And so I truly think that the first benefactors of generative AI will be students, and being able to help students truly reach the full potential they have. And what the role of the teacher can then be in the classroom is that they move from being someone conveying facts to someone that can then be a coach to help improve more students on an individual basis. Now, the student is great, but we should also look at the teacher and what can we then provide for the teacher. And I think that there are going to be a lot of tools that you can actually start using right now with generative AI that can really improve your learning. In fact, one of the things that I actually did is I was working on a program at the end of the year last year, and was about teaching cloud technologies to business leaders. And just for fun, I went into ChatGPT. It'd only been out for a couple of weeks at the time, and I said, look, I need to teach a 5-day class with business leaders on how to go from no knowledge to being very knowledgeable on cloud. How would I do that? And what was interesting is that ChatGPT then put together a full lesson plan. And it was one of those tools where it's like, if I had spent time, maybe a day or two, I could have probably come up with something very similar. I've run a lot of training programs in the past. But what was interesting is that it came up with the program, but then day 3, the content seemed, it jumped from being basic to advanced very quickly. So I was able to go in and say, well, day 1, day 2, and 4 and 5 look good, but day 3 seems to make a significant jump. Can we change that? And ChatGPT then restructured the learning program around that. And this tool that I got was a full lesson plan. So we got objectives, we've got key points that need to be communicated, examples that should be presented, and homework that should be given to each of the students. So I see that generative AI is going to be a tool that we can leverage effectively for teachers to be able to take their experiences to the next level and kind of take out one of those challenges that they have of spending so much time in putting together training materials, and being able to then use that time to be able to focus in on the students in the classroom. And so another area that AI is going to impact very quickly is the concept around remote education and just the access to quality education. When the internet was launched in the early 1990s, one of the key elements that I could see was the democratization of information, and that became even more apparent in the 2010s, when mobility tools were coming out and smartphones were coming down greatly in price, enabling people worldwide to be able to have full access to the internet. This is just a continuation of that story, where we can see generative AI and AI tools as a whole really providing a true high quality level of education. So we can actually then go out and one of the key areas of focus within generative AI is around what's called natural language processing. And so if we look at tools like ChatGPT, what's an interesting byproduct is that they're built on what are called large language models, these massive pieces of data. In fact, ChatGPT can only be hosted in probably like 6 to 10 data centers worldwide, because the database that it uses to analyze and come up with the responses it creates is so massive. But it's an analysis of all human knowledge on the internet. What that means as a byproduct is that it's really good at translations. And so I was actually talking to a client last week, and we were talking about education and healthcare, and we were using ChatGPT. He said, "Well, this is great, Matt. You've been able to show me how ChatGPT can write an essay, but then rewrite it for say, for instance, if in this instance we were using an example, my son is diabetic, and so we asked ChatGPT to explain diabetes." And then we asked it to explain it to us as if we were a father talking to a 5-year-old son. And it did a phenomenal job where it took out all the scientific language and restructured the answer as a metaphor. And it was absolutely spot on. And he said, "But Matt, this is great, but not everybody speaks English. I have clients that speak, we probably service 20 different languages." I said, "Right, well, let's try this out. Let's translate this into Spanish. Let's translate this into Ukrainian. Let's translate this into Chinese." And all of these languages, we were able to immediately take the same content and immediately translate it into that different language. And so that was great. But because large language models are sourced on so much large data, they're also able to do great localization. So if you want to translate and pivot the conversation, so for instance, you want to target a specific version of Spanish, and you want to use that from a specific country, you can come in and do exactly that. So it's really going to help us to dial in and provide access to education that previously we could do, but it was very expensive to be able to do it and very time consuming. And then kind of a final slide on education here is I really feel that generative AI tools are going to superpower collaboration and creativity. If you have used any of the generative AI tools such as DALL-E or ChatGPT, I'm sure you have been impressed with how this has, been able to help you kind of gain superpower skills in creativity. In that, for instance, if you are writing an email, I do this all the time now when I'm writing an email. I tend to write in bullet points, which isn't always the best way to communicate. So I actually take my key points and I put them into ChatGPT and say, write me an email and the audience is, and this is then the content. And then it will rewrite the content for me. Then what I do is I take the email and then I'll edit it and everything. But what it's done is that it's allowed me to free up a significant amount of time and get me to the point where I'm managing the content before releasing it, instead of having to spend, maybe half an hour creating that content. And I really think that we're going to see more and more of this collaboration and creativity. So, couple of areas I want to just hit on. We're at the beginning of what's happening with generative AI. There are risks we have to be concerned about. So there's privacy and security risks. The advantage we have right now, though, is that companies like Microsoft and AWS are really zeroing in on those risks. And I think those will be resolved in the next year or so. And there's equally some legal and ethical issues as well. Around where the content is being sourced from. Again, we're already seeing companies like Adobe taking a stance in this space, and so I think they will be resolved. But go into using these tools with your eyes wide open, because it's going to be important for you. So just in summary, I kind of want to talk about just a couple of key things. When it comes to generative AI, we're at a pivotal sea change moment, and the work that we're using with generative AI right now is as bad as it's going to get. It's only going to get better. It's going to have more tools that are going to be more flexible. Expect that the tools for personalized learning for students, for tools for supporting teachers to be more effective in the classroom. Expect those tools just to continue to improve. And then the byproduct of this is that we're going to increase the quality of our education and have opportunities to increase the reach of our education and the ways in which the next generation is going to be educated. So hopefully this gave you pause for thought on how AI is going to improve education. I think we're going to see tremendous changes in this space over the next few years. Thank you for being with me today.